All right, we will call together to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Show Low for February 28th of 2017. The roll call shows that all commissioners present, with the exception of Commissioners Clark and Adams, who are excused. I will do the invocation this evening. The pledge will be done by Commissioner Berry. So will you all please rise with me? Father in heaven, we ask your direction as we consider issues tonight that could be of particular importance to a significant number of the citizens of our wonderful community. Please provide us with the direction that we need to act in the best possible manner. We would like to thank you so much for the moisture that you continue to bestow on us. We're beyond grateful because we know that you know what the danger of fire presents to us here. We always ask that you hold our first responders and those who serve our nation, both here and abroad, close to your heart and deliver them home safely to their families at the end of their work days. We ask all of these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And let the record show that Commissioner Clark has joined us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
All right. We'll begin with, we would normally begin with old business, which there is none. So we will proceed directly to the new business for this evening, which is a public hearing to consider the proposed amendments to section 15-1-45, and which is the sign ordinance, and 15-1-69, which is the wireless telecommunications towers and antennas section of the planning and zoning ordinance. Mr. Tregaskis is going to walk us through that process.
Thank you. At a study session held after its regular meeting on January 10th of 2017, staff discussed with the commission possible revisions to sections 15-145, which is our sign code, as well as 15-169, which is our wireless telecommunications towers and antennas code. The purpose of these revisions is to perform general updates to help ensure that our codes meet the requirements of recent Supreme Court action and to help streamline processes. Proposed amendments to the sign code include relocating the mural requirements from the sign code to section 15-144, which is general provisions, updating definitions to help ensure content neutrality, allowing multiple simultaneous colors on electronic message board signs, reducing the amount of time a message has to be visible on electronic message board signs from 5 minutes to 1 minute, and streamlining the enforcement process. We did provide the commission with a copy of the sign code. We did proposed revisions are highlighted in yellow with additions underlined, and things to be deleted are marked with a strike through. Proposed amendments to the wireless telecommunications tower and antennas are limited. Basically, I think we're proposing to remove 4 words from that section. That would change the required minimum setback distance of a wireless telecommunications tower in order to allow flexibility in the placement of a wireless telecommunications tower. Current code requires the towers to be set back a minimum of 125% of the tower height from adjacent property lines. This setback can be reduced to 100% of the tower height if allowed by the Planning and Zoning Commission as part of a conditional use permit. So currently, if you were to place an 80-foot tall cell phone tower, you would need to be 125% of that height, which I believe would mean you'd have to be 100 feet away from a property line, 80 feet plus the additional 25%. The commission, through the conditional use permit, could reduce that to 100%, meaning 80 feet tall, 80 feet from the property line. What is being proposed as part of these revisions would be that the tower setback would be reduced to any number if allowed by the Planning and Zoning Commission as part of the conditional use permit. So an 80-foot tower would not necessarily have to be 100 feet, 80 feet. It could be any number from 0 on up based on that conditional use permit. What the consideration there is that the neighboring property owner would be notified as part of the conditional use permit and would have the opportunity to give input. There may be some property owners that are concerned about that. There may be some property owners that really, it doesn't matter much to them one way or the other. That gives us as a staff and you as a commission flexibility in that approval. We did attach the proposed revisions for the wireless telecommunications tower as well. We did schedule this matter for a public hearing this evening. Following the closing of the public hearing, the commission will consider the amendments as presented. And then following consideration, the council or the commission would then forward its recommendation to the city council for action by the council. The council would have the option to adopt as recommended or to modify as they deem necessary those recommendations. With that, staff is available for questions. Mr. Chair, we could go through page by page. We could, if you guys have specific questions, we certainly can entertain those. At some point, we will need to open for a public hearing. So.
Understood, sir. Thank you for the update. So we'll begin with those who have questions for staff. I have 3 or 4, so we'll just sort of run through them. The first one that occurred to me was, and this is just a clarification question. It looks like we've removed the word commercial from a whole bunch of stuff in here, okay? But if we look at on page 15-9, we've under item let's see, under what is that? Parentheses G, okay? We've added commercial flags. Okay, and my question was, is that just because it hadn't been addressed anywhere else, or is there a specific reason why we added it?
Yes to both questions.
Okay,
On page 15-9, that item G, which is actually D1G, we added the word commercial flags. Recently, the Supreme Court had a case that worked its way through Reed versus the town of Gilbert. And as part of that case, there was some clarification that the Supreme Court made regarding wording in your sign code. You have to be content neutral, which is why you see a lot of these strike-throughs throughout here. In the case of this item G, we added the word commercial flag, specifically because we wanted to, and I think we need to, make a distinction between a flag that is used for commercial purposes as opposed to a patriotic flag, a flag of a political subdivision such as the state of Arizona. We didn't want to have somebody say, gee, I can't fly the flag of our country, or I can only do it for 45 days. So we added the commercial flag there. In response to the second question, this is the portion of code that we refer to when we call them feather flags, but they go by all sorts of different names. These are the pennants that are stuck out in front of businesses that say grand opening, Memorial Day sale, and they look like a big feather sticking up out of the ground. And so we added this clarification in this section to be consistent with how we've been interpreting this section. Currently, if I own a business and I want to put one of those feather type flags out in front of my business, the city does not require me to get a permit for that. And you're limited to 45 days out of the calendar year. We added the words in letter G to be consistent with that practice that we've been going by recently. So,
Okay, thank you. Anybody else before I proceed? Please let the record show that we've been joined by
I've got a question, but
by,
we'll wait till.
Commissioner Adams. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Has there been any contact with the county?
As far as sign code revisions and things like that?
And,
or-
yeah, among other things.
We have been in contact with the county regarding fire code and building code requirements. We're looking at doing some other things there which won't involve the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have not been involved with the county on the sign code.
Okay. But you have been involved with it on the other items? huh?
Yes.
Because I brought it up at the last planning and zoning, the county meeting, and I asked that they contact you to make sure, what I was trying to do is to make sure that what we list as a sign code, or maybe not sign code, but other items that are in this, that they match accordingly, and we're not have one set of rules and regs for the county and one for the city. So I'm hoping that we can do something, because I think it might be, so you haven't had any recent stuff?
No, we have not been contacted by the
Okay,
county to
because
discuss that.
I think they were going to try to get a hold of you right away.
We'd be happy to have that discussion with them, so.
That's all.
Thank you, sir. Under Roman, let's see, where am I? On 15, page 15-13, under, it would be paragraph F, two, where am I? Under parentheses I. I gather that adhesive vinyl is what everybody refers to as wrapped.
Yes.
Or whatever. Okay, I just want to make sure that that's the case. And my question there is, since it says that the provision expressly excludes that, and I don't want to look for windmills to tilt at, but what would happen if a guy who, let's say, ran or his wife, who ran home businesses or something, had a vehicle that was wrapped, okay? They worked out of their home office, and he decided he wanted to park it along the road in front of Denny's in the Park Pine Way Shopping Center.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay because it's excluded from the sign code?
If, we have further provisions later on that talk about that. If it is an example of I'm running a business out of my home, or I'm just self-employed for whatever reason. Perhaps I'm a contractor and I have a vinyl wrap that goes around my entire pickup truck advertising, different services and that type of thing. And I use that vehicle and I drive it back and forth to where I go and to the different job sites. And my wife and I, we want to have a nice meal, and we decide we go to Denny's and we drive there and we eat dinner and then we drive home. That would be, that's a permitted use. You can do that.
Okay.
If I decided that I'm going to purchase an old vehicle and I'm going to put one of these wraps on it, or a banner, or I'm going to paint it with whatever method of painting I'm going to use, and then I'm going to park it in front of Denny's, and I'm not there because I'm eating dinner there, my vehicle just happens to be parked there, that would be in violation of our code.
Okay, so the
Like
question.
an old U-Haul or a limo or something like that?
Any
had
number
those.
of things, yes, yep.
Yeah, well, what do you do about a business like ours where we have vehicles that we use to transport customers home?
Right.
Where does that fall?
That falls under this same provision, so it does not require any type of a permit. You're allowed, the example we used several years ago when we went through this before was like the Schwann's man. The Schwann's truck drives all over town, parks in front of businesses, parks in front of houses all day long. This provision would allow them to continue to do that.
The idea is it's still a vehicle that's moving. It's not a vehicle that gets parked and treated like a sign.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then, let me see, and then I'll shut up. On page 15, I think it's the two, let me find out here. Under 15, 15, on page 1522, this is just for, again, for personal edification. We've said that effectively, now the signs can be any color they want. Right, the neon signs, the electronic signs can be whatever color they want to be. And is that also related to some sort of a court decision, or is that just something that we've decided makes sense to do?
Yes to both again.
Oh, okay.
The court decision, again, dealing with content neutrality, there are some opinions that if you tell one type of sign that you can be any color you want, and you tell another type of sign you're limited to a black background with one of 4 colors at any single time, that you're now starting to look at the content of that sign, and you're treating one sign more restrictively than the other. And so based on that, based on some input that we've received, that's why we have the recommendation here to remove that color restriction on those electronic signs.
Okay.
We were just, as a kind of a side note, we were looking at some specs for an electronic sign this morning. And I think the specs said that it was capable of 216 quintillion colors.
Oh, I'm sure.
So-
I'm sure.
How you pick the right shade of blue out of that
can.
quintillion colors, I don't know.
I don't, and this is as an aside, but every time I come back from Payson coming through Heber Overguard, I'm surprised there's not a massive pileup at the sign in front of the restaurant there before you just make the bend to head down 260 this way, because that sign looks like a kaleidoscope. I mean, it is just,
Yep.
anyway, all right, never mind.
The requirement that the signs not be animated,
Right,
that is still in place. So that's recommendation.
Okay.
And that would be consistent with what we have currently in our sign code now. So you can say toilet paper $1.99, and it can stay for the minimum duration, which is recommended to be 1 minute. At the end of that 1 minute, you can flash directly to, paper towels are $1.99 also, whatever the sign says.
be careful with what color you choose, though.
Yeah.
Never mind.
One of
A
the
lot to choose from.
Yes. Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
I just had one question because I remember when we were going through this as far as the time allotted to change. When we were talking about another sign in the city. Now we're reducing it to 1 minute as opposed to 5. Was that part of the,
Not part of the court case. That's just something, again, we've heard comments from business owners from different groups that 5 minutes perhaps is a little bit too long. We looked at what was it we were trying to accomplish. The concern being if you had multiple businesses, they're not going to synchronize their signs, so they all switch at the same time. We didn't want to see them, flash, 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 flash all the way down the road. With the speed limits that we've got and the sight distances that we have, a minute, I think, still meets that concern whilst giving the business owners a lot more flexibility and more messages that they can promote.
have we, are there other determining factors about, have we done any research as far as, is that the norm? Is 1 minute like kind of a good spot?
There is no norm.
Okay,
Some places it can be, there's no time restriction at all, which is why you see the full animation switching from one message to the next. Some places will put a time restriction. It could be as little as 15 seconds. And then others still have no, have a very extended time period. So it's one of those, I think I feel comfortable in saying, as staff, as a commission, as council, we have some latitude to determine what is appropriate for Sholo with that time period. So,
We just don't want it to look like Las Vegas or something like that,
Correct.
right?
That was
Okay.
years ago. That was where we were what we were trying to avoid, yeah. Okay, I think my last issue here is if we look at violations, which begins on 15-29 and runs through at least 15-31, maybe beyond. For both portable temporary signs and vehicle signs, effectively, you're proposing that we do away with second and third offenses, or second and third warnings,
right.
right? They get one shot, period, case closed, or whatever. But we've left it in place for the standard signs, can you explain why that's,
Yes. When we look at the portable temporary signs as well as the vehicle mounted signs, those are signs that they got there pretty easily. They can get away pretty easily. It's a sign that somebody carried out and set in front of their business. Maybe they put a T-post or two out in front and tied a banner to it. These are what we talk about portable signs.
Right.
So we can go knock on the door of the business. And we had this happen just a few weeks ago. Somebody had a portable sign that was set on the sidewalk. If we had gone through all of this enforcement as it's outlined in code, we would have been 5 days on the first notice. We would have been 5 days on the second notice. And then we would have been to the third notice before we could have taken them to court. Now, fortunately, we just went and we talked to the business owner and said, can you please move that off the sidewalk? And they were happy to do so. I helped move it back and we were good. Had we been with a business owner that wasn't so cooperative, it would have been an extended period of time for a sign that literally you can just pick up and move. And so that's why you see the reduced recommendation there. The same with the vehicle mounted sign. It drove there, it should be able to drive away. And so rather than go through an extended time period where we notify the owner and it still sits there and it still sits there, and here we are 2 weeks later and it's still sitting there, you drove it there, you can drive it somewhere else. So that's why you see those two. The permanent sign, sometimes those are a little harder. They're set in concrete.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit longer sometimes to get those signs moved. And so that's why you see the portable ones, a little bit shorter time. The ones that are set in stone sometimes, those we need a little bit more time to work with the property owner to get them moved.
is it your experience that most of the sign problems are inadvertent or, particularly the permanent ones, I would say, I would think that folks who are going to put up a permanent sign would want to know that everything was okay before, but maybe not.
I think in most cases, I think in a lot of cases, it's inadvertent. It's an honest mistake. Maybe they were looking through a catalog, maybe somebody came and sold them something based on a representation that perhaps was not entirely accurate. We do run into people where it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is permission. And so we have to work with those individuals and those business owners as well. I feel pretty confident with the portable signs. This would give us the tools to help do that a little bit more expeditiously. With the permanent signs, we're going to have to work with them, and we realize it's going to take a little bit more time. And so that's why you see the recommendation that we've got with you tonight.
So these are like A-frame signs that they're putting out on the street or something?
The portable temporary, yes.
So why do they need 5 days to remove an A-frame? I mean, that would just seem if there was an issue, it's on a public sidewalk, why can't somebody from the city pick it up and take it into their office and say, you can't put it out there?
On the A-frame, there are times when we are able to make face-to-face contact with the business owner or with the person who is able to do to make the decision about the sign. And those would be a 1 day. That's what we currently have in code right now. That's not proposed to change. We also realize sometimes we don't get to talk to the person who makes the decision. And so we have to send that person a letter. Letters take 2, 3, sometimes a few days to get to that person. So if we have to mail the letter, that's where the 5 days comes in rather than the 1 day.
And then a follow-on to that, I thought about it earlier, and I wasn't gonna say anything, but so it's delivered by mail, and what happens if the guy says, or gal, says, I didn't get it?
We'll send that one certified.
All right, that's what I wanted to make sure of.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on signs? If not, I think we can transition directly to the,
We can go right to the next one if you'd like.
okay.
Again, on this one, we did not reproduce the entire code, section 15169. It's about 15 pages. And as I said, we're only impacting one sentence. And so we included the reference 15169 G2D1 setbacks. And we're proposing to remove the wording to a minimum of 100%. So rather than reading towers must be set back a distance equal to at least 125% of the height of the tower from any adjoining lot line, but may be reduced by the commission to a minimum of 100% if the goals of this ordinance would be better served. What the wording would say is, but may be reduced by the commission if the goals of this ordinance would be better served. So there is no set number to which you guys can approve that. It could be 0 feet, it could be all the way up to the 125% as required up above.
So it could be right on the property line or right by the property line.
Possibly, I mean, that is a real possibility that could happen, yeah.
And my question here would be, I would guess that we would look at the potential liability issues to the city on a case-by-case basis. Mr. Attorney? All right.
Good thing we don't pay him by the word.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he'd be a wealthy man anyway, right? All right, any further questions?
No, I would just add that we'd want to be careful with that as far as the setback and being too close to other properties, because things do fall off of towers. A lot of times ice falls off of towers, and if it's near a property that has a structure and it's too close to that property line, I think we'd have to take that into consideration versus it's an empty property line or something like that. So,
And that we would, whenever there was an application, we would do specific to that application. Okay, gotcha. All right, if there's no further questions for staff. We'll open it up to the vast group of members in the public tonight for comment, and, but seeing none, I will now close the public portion of the hearing and bring it back to the council for a recommendation, commission for a recommendation, I'm sorry.
I move to recommend that the city council approve the changes to chapters 15-1-45 signs and 15-1-69 wireless telecommunication towers and antennas as outlined.
I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Tagaskis?
This item has been scheduled for a public hearing with the city council next week at their regularly scheduled meeting.
All righty. That leads us to the approval of the minutes from the February 14th session. Can I have a motion to so approve?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Berry and a second from Vice Chairman
Robertson.
Robertson. Any further dialogue there, question there? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, Any opposed? All right, that carries unanimously. Summary of current events. Mr. Clark down there.
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Commissioner Adams.
I don't have anything. Sorry about being late.
Commissioner Barron.
Not a thing, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Bishop.
Nothing this year.
Commissioner Berry.
I wore myself out last time.
Nothing
Vice
to
Chair
report.
Robertson.
Nothing to report.
Likewise, I have nothing to report. Mr. Tagaskis.
Just a reminder, we have several commissioners whose terms expire. They have all applied to be readmitted to the commission, recommitted.
Yes.
The city council will be conducting interviews with all individuals who have applied or submitted interest to be on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So you should be getting a phone call to schedule that with you. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I have nothing else to report.
All right. I think we're done. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. You talk about trying to get
I was late too, so.